let's get into this now. Here we go.
And it was titled "Girls Do Not Want Me." So I'll keep this guy's name private because the whole goal, if ever I read something, is to not humiliate anyone. Pretty much not make any dude feel like they're bad or that they get humiliated or anything like that. I make sure to keep everyone on private. So the guy goes in the subject line, "Why girls do not want me?" And this dude writes me an email and he goes, "Hi Casey, I see myself as a high value man. I am attractive, I have values, I have a purpose. Girls do not want me. The girls still choose those beta guys. I do not know why. They do not have any purpose and so on. They do not work on themselves, but girls and women still want them. Even if they are the top tier girls. What's the matter? Do you know why it is like this? Thank you for your answer." Now, I actually thought this was a hell of a question.
So this is quite good because he's received this email from one of his viewers, and it's the kind of thing, I've received messages like this myself as well. It's the kind of thing that guys will often say, basically along the lines of, look, I've got all of my ducks in a row. I'm high value, I'm hardworking, I'm successful, I've done this, I've done that. So why are these girls not selecting me? Why are they selecting other guys? Okay, and so now Casey will go into this sort of line by line and break it down.
So you probably won't like my answer. Some of you might think I'm an asshole or whatever, but don't really care because you got to basically know the truth when it comes to dating women. What we're going to do here today is we're going to break this down exactly line by line so that way you can
let me know if in the chat if the volumes on this is okay. In fact, actually, we'll turn it up here a little bit. Here we go.
Get a good understanding why our friend over here is struggling. And then if any of you are like busy worker bees that tell yourself, "Oh, I just work really hard and I have this big purpose and now I'm this big stud and all the girls should want me," you're basically in for a rude awakening, okay? Let's break this down step by step. Okay, so the first sentence here, he goes, "I see myself as a high value man." Right off the bat, I already know you're watching too much content. You're probably too much in your head. If you're ever using these terms like, "Oh, Casey, I'm some stoic guy. I'm some high value man. Look at these betas." You're so in the lingo. Like you're all of a sudden like how normal people interact and how normal people talk. You're never gonna find some dude at a house party, a club, some dude like actually cold approaching or talking to a girl. People don't talk that way.
He's right, isn't he? I mean, who do you hear in real life off the internet who talks about being a high value man, or I'm a high value man, or this person's a high value man, or who talks about betas, or who talks about any of this stuff, really? The lingo in the space has always bothered me as well. I think that it's useful as a shorthand because it helps to explain concepts in a simple, easy to digest way. But I also think that it kind of binds people because it makes them too rigid in their thinking. They believe that the world is this rigid thing and it's defined by these principles, which really are only approximations of what's actually happening out there. And also, let's be honest, it's dorky as fuck to be using this kind of lingo. Really, I mean, yes, we do it because we're content creators and we have to communicate in a sort of easy to understand, effective way. But in general, in real life, you shouldn't be talking like this.
So if you find yourself talking that way, you already know damn well you're way too up in your head because normal people don't walk around and say, like, "Oh, I'm this high value guy." And truthfully, if you are a high value guy, the last thing a high value guy does is say the words, "I'm a high value guy."
True.
Okay, that's first. That's the first part. Next, I'm attractive, I have values, and I have purpose. Girls do not want me. Well, that's your first problem. If you have values and you have a purpose, that doesn't equal sexual attraction or sexual arousal.
Absolutely. And this really gets to the key of this whole thing. And I think the points that Casey is making in this video and some of his other videos as well are really, really important. And this is something that most men out there just don't understand, okay? Let's dive in more. Let's see what he says. But this stuff is so important.
This is going to be a rude awakening for a lot of you. But what you got to understand about this is that if you have values and you have purpose, that is the opposite of sex appeal, okay? People used to know this and understand this, and I'm going to get into a little woo-woo type spiritual religion crap for just a second here so you can understand this. Things like value and things like purpose, okay, there was once upon a time before the internet and before social media where hooking up was considered bad, Okay, there
Well, still is considered bad by the Christ pill guys, isn't it? But
was a time where hooking up or lust was considered degenerate behavior.
it still is. Take the Christ pill.
There was also a time where people were most of the time shamed for that, whether that be in their friend group or whether that be in the community or what have you. Only now in recent times is this considered something good, and only in recent times is this considered something that makes you a success. There was once a point in time where that was considered engaging in degeneracy. So I'm going to just break this down for you as good as I can. If you have values, that's the opposite of sex appeal and seduction. If you have purpose, that is the opposite of sex appeal and seduction. Now, if you're 30,
Okay, so if you have values, that's the opposite of sex appeal and seduction. If you have purpose, that's the opposite of sex appeal and seduction. So fascinating what he's saying there. And he's right, but I would caveat it. And I'm going to explain why I would caveat it personally a little bit later on. But he is right, because what he's talking about here is generating raw, visceral attraction, or indeed raw, visceral arousal. Okay, and raw, visceral arousal, this is female to male, is not generated by a guy who has good values and a good work ethic and a 401k and is very good with money and etc etc etc. It just isn't. That stuff is, quite frankly, it might be desirable in a long-term partner if you're looking to, create a certain lifestyle together and etc etc etc. Is it sexy? No. And that's what Casey's saying, and this is why this stuff is so important. So let's continue.
2 years old and she's 29 and she's looking for a hubby, you're probably in good hands. She's like, oh, let's go out on a date and get some macaroni and cheese and we can talk about our future and build a house. That's not what you're asking me. What you're asking me is why you ain't getting chosen by the hot girls. The hot girls who are guided by their emotions, you're going to notice they're going to be hooking up with dudes who are acting stupid, guys who are oftentimes losers, guys who scream and shout whatever they want. A lot of times these guys have heavy amounts of tattoos. A lot of times these guys don't really give a fuck about anything. And a lot of times these guys are completely broke, right? All of those things equal sex appeal, or all of those things lead to lust or attraction or short-term sex due to the fact that it is the opposite of everything that is good.
Now, the only point that and he's right, but, and this, so years ago, Rollo Tomassi did a really interesting post, and God, I need to remember the name of this dude. But he identified this guy who'd been in the news, an Australian dude. Somebody put it in the chat because somebody's going to know this. There was this Australian dude who'd had a house party when his parents were away. It had all gone wrong. He ended up on the local news, and he was being interviewed by the local news channel, and he was just super nonchalant. He just had this zero fucks given attitude. He didn't care. And Rollo Tomassi said that guy, as far as the sexual marketplace is concerned, is an alpha. You lot think he's got to be a leader in his community. He's got to be somebody who's, got a really great job and he's earning a certain amount of money and he's got a certain kind of car and he's maybe got this kind of watch and so on and so forth. Rollo Tomassi said, no, this guy's a complete bum and a loser, but look at his attitude. Look at the way that he comes across. That is true alpha. And that is, I believe, close to what Casey Zander is saying here, right? It's these guys who've got, you can distill it down to a ZFG, zero fucks given attitude. Those are the guys who are genuinely sexy to women, okay? Those are the guys that women look to for short-term mating opportunities. That is to say, hookups. Now, you might say, well, I'm not looking for that anyway. I'm looking for something long-term. I'm looking for that. Yes, so marriage causes divorce. Corey Worthington, thank you very much. Google Corey Worthington, guys. Not now, not while the stream's on. Stay on the stream. Give me a like. We need 9 likes at least on this video, please, to help the algorithm. It will really help me out. Google Corey Worthington, you'll see this dude. You'll see what I'm talking about. So that was many years ago. But anyway, the principle is the same. That guy, or that archetype of guy, he hasn't spent 15 years working on himself. Corey Worthington, I think, was in decent shape, but it's not even necessarily about being in good shape. It's not necessarily about having money. It's not necessarily about being intelligent. In fact, it's absolutely not about being intelligent. Casey goes on to talk about how actually guys who are dumb tend to get more play, certainly in the short term. And all of that's true. And all of that's true. And we'll find out why in a second. But the only thing that I would add to that is that every relationship, whether it's casual, a one-night stand, whether it's the Cancun phone party, or whether it's going to lead on to a marriage or something longer term, every relationship needs to be, initially at least, founded in attraction. Okay? Now, women are more viscerally attracted to the characteristics that Casey is talking about here than they are to the boring, stuffy, I'm a senior accountant in the firm and I hope to make partner one day and I'm going to be earning this amount of money. Like that stuff is great on a material level, but it's not making them excited. Okay. It's not giving them the tingles. So it's better in dating and in game to present as the guy who gives the tingles. Now, the only caveat to this is that it's then possible to translate that into a longer term relationship if you want to, because it might be that you've got those aspects to your character. You do have the exciting bad boy, don't give a fuck kind of edge to you. But there are also other qualities about you as well. Maybe actually you do have the potential to make some good money. Maybe you are making good money, right? So but it's far easier to transfer that sort of casual, that from that sexual attraction, then to build out a longer term relationship than it is the other way around, which is effectively to sit there and audition to be her boyfriend, because then you're going on the date and you're kind of saying, well, I've got these qualities, I'm a sensible man with these values and these accomplishments and blah, blah, blah. And so we should get together because it's going to work really well. That is a harder sell than actually just being the sexy guy. Anyway, let's see what he says now.
Okay, so what you got to know is this was common knowledge once upon a time. If you're trying to have the attractive girls want you sexually, you're going to have to do what most modern people engage in, and you're going to have to actually engage in that sort of lifestyle, and you're going to have to dumb yourself down.
Dumb yourself down. You know, intelligence, I'm afraid. Intelligence and a lot of guys, particularly guys who come to male dating content because they're having problems in this field, often they will be people who are very intelligent. Perhaps they are very analytical. Maybe they are somewhat on the spectrum, but certainly they might be people who are very good with numbers. They're very good with data. They're maybe good with coding and disciplines like that. And all of that stuff's great, and it's great in society, and it means that you can make money and you can be successful. It's not great as far as creating sexual attraction is concerned. In fact, it's the antithesis of sexual attraction. So he's absolutely right on this.
That way you can have these meaningless conversations, and so that way you can talk about useless nonsense, so the girl giggles and laughs, and then all of a sudden she goes home with you. That's typically how this shit works. You're never going to get a girl where she walks up and she goes, look at the purpose and values on that guy. They don't give a fuck. Okay, this is basic shit. Now, the girls still choose the beta guys, and I don't know why. Okay, you are considering them beta. The girls don't consider them beta. So you don't know how she sees the world. How you see the world and how she sees the world is completely different. Okay? You might look at that guy and go, oh, that's beta. She might look at that guy and go, that's alpha sex appeal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of perception, isn't it? It's interesting that the guy who wrote this email has designated these other men who are getting the action as beta. But what does he mean by beta? It doesn't reveal it in the email, but Casey is correct. Clearly, by definition, or the definition at least as far as the dating market is concerned, these guys are not beta. These guys who are getting the action are by definition the alphas, because those are the ones who are being selected. So they're doing something right. And the guy who wrote the email is not doing something right.
So just because you consider it beta doesn't mean that she does. And what you got to know is that if they're choosing those sorts of guys, they're choosing them for a reason. So clearly when it comes to your social life or your social skills, you're doing something wrong that is not engaging or sparking the right sort of emotion. Next.
Sparking emotion, very important. That's really what it's all about. And I've said this many, many times on videos. And, you know, the longer that I've studied this stuff, the longer that I've been involved with this stuff, the more that I think it really is. It's not about the lines you say. It's not about these clever gambits. It's not about the sort of theory of game that you've learned or anything like that. Fundamentally it is about what emotion are you sparking in her when you sit down with her on a date, or let's say in the first approach. But let's say it's on a date. You're sitting down, she's next to you, or maybe she's at right angles to you. You guys are there. You're looking her in the eye. You're talking to her. What emotion are you sparking in her? That is what is going to make the difference. Okay, that is the key thing, and that's what he's talking about here.
I do not know why. Well, I just told you. You're basically husband material, and they're basically looking for a stiff dick and a good time. Now, they do not have any purpose and so on. They do not work on themselves. Okay, here's the other cold hard truth. When you say they don't have any purpose and so on, girls never look at a guy and go, God, look at the purpose on him. They're going to look at a guy and they go, he's funny, he's charming, he made me laugh, he's sexy. All of the stuff that you're typing to me is anti-seductive. So what I'm trying to tell you is that if you want to spark attraction, especially like in the short term now where the girl's sitting right there in front of you, you are going to have to engage in that sort of behavior.
He's right, isn't he? So all of the stuff that the bloke wrote in the email is anti-seductive, okay? On paper, the qualities that the guy's talking about in the email are attractive qualities. But in reality, they are anti-seductive.